This week I made 2 different gins to compare to each other. They're actually exactly the same recipe, but one is made by macerating the botanicals in the alcohol and adding it to the pot, and the second is made using vapour infusion. Which one's better? How are they different? Let's find out. How's it going, chasers? I hope you're having a kick-ass week. I'm Jesse, and this is still at the channel all about chasing the craft of home distillation and making it a legitimate hobby. So here we have it, guys. I haven't bottled this yet because I'm a little bit lazy, but I have bottled this. This is the vapor infused gin, and this on the other side is the maceration gin. And what I want to do in this video is walk you through how I made both of these, so you can kind of understand the little experiment that I'm doing. See if you think that I've, could have done things a little bit better, could have done things a little bit differently, whether or not you think it's a fair test. And then I'm going to talk about the differences between the 2 gins, and I have yet to actually taste these things side by side. But first of all, why the hell am I doing this? Well, if you're into gin at all and you look around at marketing or the way people make things or whatever, vapor infusion is talked about a lot. And I have never done it. Well, not up until this, I haven't done it. I always macerate the botanicals in the liquor, in a jar like this, leave it overnight, and then add the whole lot, botanicals and all, into the pot the next day. Sorry guys, the neighbors decided that it would be a great time to, I don't know what they do. I think they've got a digger out there or something. Sorry about the noise, guys. I hope it's not too bad for you. Anyway, like I said, guys, I've never done anything but macerate gin up until this point. The first gin I made, I followed Odin's gin's recipe, and I've just always used that technique, even if I switch flavorings or botanicals or ratios. If I switch things out, I still use the same technique. But it made me wonder, what am I leaving on the table? So, that's why I'm doing this. Should we get stuck in, and I'll show you exactly what I've done to make these 2 gins. Alright guys, these are all the ingredients that I'm going to need for this gin. Not a lot, it's relatively simple, and I've been working on this gin and balancing it to my tastes for a gin and tonic kind of gin for a while now. I think of this recipe in 1 litre lots. So the base recipe is based on 1 litre of 40% ABV spirit that you put into the pot or that you macerate with, and then I multiply it from there based on the volume I'm making. So for the macerated version, I'm going to be making 3 times this recipe to put into the little mini pot still. That's the volume I like to make in that little mini pot still. It works well for me. For the vapor infused version, I'm going to be using the claw hammer still, and to safely use that still without, exposing the element after distilling for a while, I'm going to make 12 times this recipe. I know that's not a perfect comparison to compare apples with apples in terms of changing the size. It just is what it is. I didn't want to make 2 lots of 12, 12 litres. So the recipe is Juniper at 14 grams, coriander seeds at 3 grams, orange, the zest of an orange, sorry guys, I ran out of nice oranges to put back into this segment, at 8 grams. And the last ingredient is the angelica seeds, which is 0.75 grams per litre of the spirit, the vodka, the neutral, whatever you're using. That's it, guys. So just keep in mind the maceration one, the first one I'm going to do is 3 times that recipe, and the vapor infused version is 12 times that recipe. Now, if you want to get this recipe, I'll put it down in the description as well. I'll write it out so you can grab it from there, and yes, I'll convert it to freedom units down there as well. For more information on the process of making this gin, I'll link the Odin's gin recipe in the top corner right now. Different recipe, same process, but in a nutshell, I macerate at a higher ABV at 90%. I then gently crush everything that goes in other than the angelica seeds and the orange peel. Everything goes in the jar with the alcohol, and it macerates overnight before distillation. Then everything goes into the pot, including the botanicals. I proof it down to 40% ABV with nice water and run the still at a nice slow drip.
I ditched the first 17 mils per litre of recipe, it's a flavour thing, not a heads thing, and then keep the next 375 mils per litre of recipe as the final product.
This always happens to me when I decide I want to run this little still. I look outside, it is definitely going to rain. I set up inside, and now it's a beautiful day. Ridiculous. Anyway guys, so now that the still's running, I just wanted to quickly say that this is the way that I've made every gin I've made so far. On that still, I've macerated it, I've added it into the pot, and I think I did 1 or 2 without leaving the botanicals in the pot, maybe at some point in time, but for the most part, I just leave everything on in there in the pot, and I run out nice and slowly. This is kind of the reason that I wanted to try the vapour infusion, to do it a little bit differently and see if I like those results better, if I don't like those results, just what changes. In any case, now that we've taken that 50 mils off at the beginning, we've got 1.125 litres to collect. I don't know how much that is in freedom units, this much. There's not much else to show for this, guys. It's not about running the still specifically, it's about the comparison between maceration and putting the botanicals in the pot and vapour infusing. So, let me get this finished and then we can get on to the vapour infused version.
The vapour-infused version is exactly the same, but the botanicals go into the botanical basket, funnily enough. Honestly, I don't really know why, but I decided to kind of layer these a little bit and spread each ingredient out throughout the botanical basket. I thought maybe that would help. The still's charged with the 12 litres of 40% ABV. The gin basket goes into the still, everything's closed up, and we can fire things up. Obviously, this is a much larger run, so I'm going to run it at a faster speed. This time we're ditching the first 200 mils and collecting the next 4.5 litres.
While we're here, I just wanted to point out the decisions I've made and how to configure this still for this run. So obviously it does have a gin basket up here with all the botanicals in it. There's no botanicals down in the boiler and the pot. That is literally the point of this, to see the difference between the two. But I would like to point out that everything is stainless. This still does have options for copper columns and copper condensers. I've chosen not to use those because the little pot still, the mini pot still, has no copper in it. I've also kept the column as short as possible to eliminate any extra passive reflux. It wouldn't be that different, and obviously this is a little bit taller than the mini pot still. It is what it is. So let me run this out. Let me get the gins proofed down to 45%, which is where I like them, and we'll wait until tomorrow, let things settle out just a little bit, and taste. And that brings us to the pointy end of the video, tasting these two things, evaluating them and seeing if there are any differences. Interesting. Right off the bat, this is bigger, denser, more in your face in terms of all of the botanical flavors, but especially the orange and the juniper. The orange is slightly different. The orange in this is a little bit more marmalade-y, I guess. A little bit more like baked goods orange, if that makes sense. This is much more like just straight up, if you grab an orange and scratch the surface of it, and it's like orange zest. It smells like orange zest. It's much brighter, it's much fresher, I guess. Both are pleasant, don't get me wrong, guys. In terms of preference, I would lean towards this one just because it's bigger, and I like bigger, more intense flavors most of the time, but that doesn't mean it's a better thing, it's just a personal preference, right? What I will say is the juniper, especially kind of that real piney, sappy, it's almost not there. I'm not getting it at all, to be honest. Now, just to let you know, guys, both of these have been proofed down to 45%, so we're playing fair on that side of things. This is a recipe I've made a couple of times. This is kind of where I've landed on a gin that I like. I like this. It's the same as it always is. Let's see what this is like. The first thing to note is kind of the mouthfeel, or the presence of the spirit in your mouth when you're drinking it. This is more rounded, more full, almost oily. It is thicker and smooth on the tongue. This is a lot more light, and it's sort of It feels like it evaporates off the tongue a little bit quicker. It just feels less heavy on your tongue. Once again, preference thing, right? I actually quite like this, especially if I'm going to be drinking it straight. But this, I can totally see the appeal in it, especially for some cocktails. I could see where that could be a good thing. But then again, having that thick body and presence for a cocktail as well. It's not a better or worse thing, it's just a difference thing. This has a really bold flavor from beginning to end. It comes in strong and it just carries on all the way through, and you get all of the components of the ingredients that we've put in there. This one, on the other hand, the cardamom doesn't show up as much as this. The orange up front is very, very much in that zesty, fresh, just straight orange zest flavor, as opposed to, once again, slightly more stewed or baked sort of orange. And then it finishes on juniper. So the actual juniper, like the amount of juniper flavor that I'm getting out of this is less, but I think it kind of finishes more one-dimensionally on juniper. And I think the light mouthfeel that comes from this seems to allow the juniper to show through more, if that makes sense. So yes, these two are very different. And if I had to be kind of objective, I would say this is a better gin. Now, that has probably got absolutely nothing to do with the vapour versus maceration. It probably has everything to do with the fact that I've made this with this technique multiple times, and I've adjusted it, I've dialed it in so that it is balanced and enjoyable to me when I'm using this technique. And all I've done is switched over to that technique, and I've done none of that balancing. So if I made the same gin 5 times with this and just sort of adjusted ratios of ingredients, then I'd probably be able to make just as good a gin this way as this way. That's not the interesting thing to me here. The interesting thing is the way that flavors are presenting in slightly different ways. So the fact that the cardamom is not really showing up at all. Actually, it is a little on the nose. The fact that the orange is bright and fresh and almost piercing in a way. If I really wanted to dial in my perfect gin, I would use a combination of both of these techniques. I'd look at each individual component of the gin, each flavor that I wanted to put into the gin, and potentially even, literally just do juniper by itself, just do coriander by itself, just do, you get the picture, right? And see which flavor profile I like for each ingredient, whether I prefer it macerated and in the pot, or macerated and not in the pot, or vapor infused. And if I had to shoot from the hip on this one, I would say I would do the juniper and the cardamom, definitely macerated. I would probably do the orange vapor infused, and the coriander and the angelica seed, I would lean towards the maceration side of things. So I don't know, guys, how many of you have come to the same sort of conclusion? I've talked to people in the industry, I've talked to people that make a lot of really good gin as home distillers, and I have to admit that I knew that was the conclusion they came to before I even recorded this video. But it's nice for, I'm one of these people that needs to kind of do things myself to really let them sink into my head sometimes. So it's nice to see that I've come to a similar conclusion. If you do the same thing at home, let us know. Which botanicals do you put in the pot? Which do you do vapor infused? Do you do everything one way or the other? Let us know, guys. It's always nice to have some other people, weighing in on these sorts of things down in the comments. So, basically we get a larger group of data that we can pull from to make decisions based on. In any case, guys, I hope you liked this video. I'm out of here to go and drink some gin and tonics tonight with my wife. That'll be very nice. But if you liked the video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out heaps. If you have anything else to say or anything else to add or anything you think I've done wrong, chuck it in the comment section down below. That helps me out as well. And I'll catch you next time, guys. Keep on chasing the craft. See ya!